breaking down the Vikings from the perspective of a former NFL General Manager of the Year. It's Jeff Diamond's Purple Report, presented by your select Minnesota Buick GMC dealers.
Welcome to Jeff Diamond's Purple Report, brought to you every Monday and Thursday during the Viking season, sometimes on Tuesdays, such as today, after the national championship last night, by your select Minnesota Buick GMC dealers on 1500 ESPN, available 24/7 on YouTube via links from the 1500 ESPN and Score North websites. I'm Jeff Diamond, former Vikings GM, former Tennessee Titans president. Our producer is AJ Fredrickson, does a fantastic job all season long putting the show together. And AJ, unfortunately, it's our last show of the season because the Vikings are not going to be in the playoffs this year. Not to be.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of weird. The last time I'm getting the clips for the show and everything like that, and I'm looking ahead. I'm like, you know what? No, next Monday we don't have anything, unfortunately. So I kind of went out with a whimper rather than a bang, like you kind of would want them to. They had a chance, and the results we knew kind of mid-game for them weren't going to go their way. So at that point, it was just kind of do what you want to do. And granted, they started slow, and then they kind of had a resurgence. Nick Mullins did a little bit, and we'll go into it and break it all down. But kind of just a big season left with a lot of what if this didn't happen? What if this happened? And we'll always wonder, Jeff.
Absolutely. And it was really more of the same against the Lions in the season finale. As we said, frustrating 2023 season ends up 7-10. Vikings take a 6-win dip from last year's 13-win season. But I do believe that, and we've talked about this before, if Kirk Cousins had not gotten hurt, and we know ifs and buts, that's life in sports. But if he had not gotten hurt, they would be preparing for a playoff game this weekend and may have indeed won the division, as it turned out, because all they needed were 2 more wins, and that was very possible. Looking at some of those losses against Denver, Cincinnati, Chicago, the 2 Detroit games, and even earlier in the season when Cousins was there, when they blew games against Tampa Bay and the Chargers at home. And so it's just one of those years where things didn't go their way, and a lot of things on the to-do list for the GM, Kwesi Adolfo-Mensa, and for Coach Kevin O'Connell going into the offseason. We're going to talk about that too as we look ahead. But first, we'll look back at the Detroit game. In Detroit, Vikings fall 30-20. I will give them credit because they played hard. They didn't quit, and they were down 2 touchdowns, kept battling back, kept fighting back. Mullins took a lot of shots in this game. The Vikings' offensive line was down 2 starters, and Christian Darrisaw was not at 100%. You could tell certainly the pressures were there. Mullins was hit 15 times in this game, sacked 4 times, but he hung in there and really played reasonably well until the last 2 interceptions that sealed the fate for the Vikings on this day, which, again, kind of more of the same of what had happened this season. When you look back on the year and you think about the turnovers during the season, 34 giveaways, second worst in the league, and compounded with the injury factor that took away Cousins after Week 8, Jefferson missing 7 games, T.J. Hawkinson missing the last couple games. On defense, Marcus Davenport a non-factor as a $13 million free agent signing. Mm-hmm. Jordan Hicks missed several games, and D.J. Wanham goes down, and those injuries were really a factor. And you can say, hey, you got to have the depth to overcome it, and there's some truth to that. And that means you got to draft better in the future. You got better players. The secondary was a problem at the end of the year because the pass rush, when that was diminished after Wanham got hurt especially, and it really exposed the young cornerbacks and guys like a Caleb Evans, Mekhi Blackman. Blackman gets hurt. Evans plays poorly in the last several games, had to get yanked a couple times. And so those are some of the things that happened in this season, and that's why you end up with a losing season out of the playoffs. But it's not a difficult task or a difficult climb to get back to the playoffs next year by making some astute moves. And I'm talking about starting out with figuring out your quarterback, trying to get Cousins re-signed is what I would endorse, and drafting a quarterback in the first round to develop behind Cousins for a couple of years. Maybe it's only 1 year, whatever it takes. But getting Cousins signed, I think, is imperative. I think Danielle Hunter is a must-sign. Figure out a way to get that done. You can do it under the cap. They've got $39 million of cap room next year. You can get these deals done, and you can use some voidable years in contracts. There's a lot of things you can do and still be able to sign Hunter, still be able to extend Justin Jefferson with a big signing bonus spread out over several years, so the initial cap hit isn't as difficult to take. So people who say you can't have Cousins and Jefferson and Hunter, I don't buy that. I think you can do that under the cap system, the way teams such as Philadelphia use voidable deals. The Vikings have used voidable years in Cousins contracts and in other contracts. They can get it done as long as these guys want to stay here. And that's part of the equation, because they can't franchise either Cousins or Hunter. Mm-hmm. Now, Jefferson is under contract for 1 more year. A lot of things have to happen. Got to draft better. Got to be able to repeat drafting good players such as Jordan Addison, not guys like Lewis Seen unless he comes on next year. Andrew Booth, a second-round disappointment. So a lot of things have to happen, and we'll see how it shakes out. But let's go back to the Lions game and go to our highlights, courtesy of Fox, Joe Davis, and Daryl Johnston. And early in the game, the Vikings give up an early touchdown on a play. Let's look at that.
They've been leaning on this deep. Fake to Montgomery. Wide open Laporta. Easy touchdown for the Lions.
Sam Laporta, a rookie Pro Bowl tight end, and a great draft pick for the Lions, who have done a really good job adding to their personnel on both sides of the ball in the last couple of years. Guys like Aiden Hutchinson, Laporta, Jahmyr Gibbs, Jared Goff, certainly, who will have a big playoff test against the former Lions quarterback, Matthew Stafford, this weekend, which I think is the highlight game of the wild card weekend. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But that particular play, Laporta catches a touchdown pass. One of the controversial things in this game was the fact that Lions coach Dan Campbell played all of his starters and kept them in the entire game. And the result, Laporta injured his knee in this game. We'll see if he's able to go in the wild card round. If he's not, that's a big loss to the Lions. And I think that Campbell would have been better served to keep some of his star players out of this game, or to pull them very early. But that was not the case, and it's going to come back to bite him, I think, in Laporta's case. Even if he plays, he won't be 100%. Still, early in the game, Khalif Raymond beats Josh Metellus deep, sets up this touchdown by Jahmyr Gibbs.
Just as a return man, the key guy is a receiver here. Here's a toss. Here's Gibbs. Here's the corner and a touchdown.
Very exciting young running back, Jahmyr Gibbs. Going to the third quarter, Vikings trailing at halftime, but hanging around, kind of staying in the game. The defense making some stops on Jared Goff and company. And the Vikings' third quarter, the Lions get a drive going, and here's a touchdown run by David Montgomery, kind of plows over Harrison Smith, who is contemplating retirement. We'll see what happens. Harrison, fantastic career, 6 Pro Bowls, but unfortunately in this case, Montgomery gets by him.
In his base formations with the defense. There goes Skipper in motion. It's Montgomery. It is the Lions touchdown. Career high 13th of the year for Montgomery.
So the Lions at this point are up 20-6, but the Vikings still battling. Mullins starts to get a little hot, as he's able to do. Very erratic, yes, as we know. And on this play, hits Justin Jefferson. And again, talking about Jefferson, another fantastic day. 192 yards, 12 catches, well over the 1,000-yard mark in only 10 games. Certainly continues his quest to be the best receiver in the NFL, which he is. And on this day, here's a great 38-yard touchdown catch.
It's a pass. It's a deep ball. It's Jefferson for the touchdown. Justin Jefferson has the Vikings within a score.
And not just any pass there, Jeff. That's on 4th and 1. You know, you only need one to extend that drive,
Yeah, exactly.
But they go for the whole enchilada, and who better to air one out to than JJ?
Yeah, exactly. I was thinking, no. Yes. Okay. But what happens one play later, and again, typical of what happened late in the season, Caleb Evans really playing poorly at the end of the season. He decides to let Amon-Ra St. Brown, the Lions' top receiver, over 100 catches, just run right by him. And
fake to Jahmyr Gibbs. Deep throw from Goff. Down the sideline, St. Brown. Amon-Ra St. Brown in a foot race. Eyes on the end zone. Cuts it back. St. Brown is all the way. Touchdown, Detroit.
I don't know about you, Jeff, but on review of that almost seems like a personal decision on some of the coverage there to not maybe give it all on a tackle or so, you know?
Well, I think they were trying to get back, but it just was an ugly play all around. And you got to love Amon-Ra St. Brown, 4th-round pick. He's got a list of every receiver that was picked ahead of him in I think it was the 2021 draft. And what a player he's become for Detroit. And those are the kind of guys you got to find in those later rounds. And that's the quest that the Vikings have to be seeking in future drafts, to get those kind of players that come through for you that are later round picks. So at this point, 27-13. Quickly, Mullins comes back and hits Jordan Addison, who had a really excellent rookie season, 10 touchdown catches, which led all rookie receivers, along with Laporta, who he is tied with. But here's a 42-yard touchdown pass.
You're going to have Puka Nacua or Cooper Kupp coming in here next week. Mullins now wants it all with Addison. Touchdown! A strike right back for Minnesota. 42 yards from Mullins to Addison. And it's again a one-score game.
I think Jordan was telling us there that he has 10 touchdown catches this year. and he is correct about that. So looking ahead to 2024, he should be even better next year. And they got to figure out what they're going to do with KJ Osborne, who's a potential free agent. But just having Jefferson and Addison and Hockenson back healthy, that's as good a trio as I think there is in the league to work from. And I think that's part of the attraction to Kirk Cousins, as he will ponder returning to the Vikings, which I'm sure they'll make it worth his while, over $40 million a year. But even still, he may think, hey, I might get more in free agency. But as we've talked often about, I think he wants to be here. He's got a good connection with O'Connell, with his teammates. We're going to hear from Kirk in a couple minutes. Again, I think that's when you've got skilled players like that to work with, and you got an offensive line loaded with high draft picks who need to stay healthy and play better as an offensive line. I think that's part of the attraction. Plus, he's got kids in school here, as he talked about in his media session this week. So at this point, 27-20, the Lions drive, get a field goal, 30-20. Vikings still in the game in the last 4 minutes, but here comes Bad Nick surfacing with a couple of late interceptions.
Blitz. Mullins hit as he throws and picked off by Cam Sutton. Sutton on the return crosses the 35, and the Lions are 3 minutes away from the finishing touches on a franchise record 12-win regular season. Third down and 5 for Mullins, and the Vikings lofted right to the free safety and picked by Gardner Johnson. In his first game since week 2, he's got the pick.
And is there any better final, exclamation point to this season for the Vikings that was just riddled with turnovers and a ball that goes directly to the opposition?
Yeah, that was a terrible throw. The first one, he's under pressure. Reisner gets beat. And again, he was under pressure all day. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the second interception, he had time and just made a bad throw.
Yeah.
And kind of reminds us of the last Detroit game when the Vikings were driving at the end and he threw that terrible ball to Jefferson that was intercepted. Those are the kind of plays you can't have from your quarterback. that's what Cousins, with his much better accuracy, doesn't usually do. And when Kirk was in there, 18 touchdown passes, 5 interceptions, was ranked third in passer rating this year. That's pretty good stuff.
No kidding.
Before we hear from the head coach and a couple of the players, let's talk about our great sponsor, the Select Minnesota Buick GMC dealers. There are trucks, then there's the truck, GMC Sierra, with available features like the V8 engine, the ultimate luxury interior, and of course, the available world's first 6-function multi-pro tailgate. GMC Sierra, not just any truck, the truck. GMC's continued commitment to professional-grade engineering is on full display at your local GMC dealer. Come take a test drive today and see for yourself. We are professional-grade GMC. Well-qualified buyers get 0.9% APR on 2023 GMC Sierra light-duty models, plus no monthly payments for 90 days. See your local GMC dealer today. Length of contract limited, deferred monthly payments for 90 days. Excludes residents of Pennsylvania. Must finance with GM Financial. Down payment required at signing, if applicable. Finance charges accrue from data financing. Some customers will not qualify. Not available with lease, and some other offers take new retail delivery by 1/31/24. Here's the head coach, Kevin O'Connell, after this frustrating season, talking about what's happened in 2023.
You know, the feeling in that locker room right now of, you can feel why those guys battled today, why they continue to fight all the way down to the very end. Not one player in there looking to not continue to play as hard as they possibly could, compete like crazy for the guy next to them. It's a good feeling to know that is what exists in our locker room. Not good enough to get the win today, but like I said, I did appreciate the way we battled, the way we tried to come back and see if we can eventually chase down tying the football game or taking the lead, and we were just unable to do that. And then kind of the end of game execution by them and a couple turnovers there by us. Just didn't have enough to get it done today.
And Kevin also talked about Justin Jefferson and his play this season.
He reached 1,000 yards. There was a lot of football after that he went out and played, and it had no bearing on when I told him, late in the game when I was going to take him out to protect him for the offseason and everything moving forward. He didn't like that either. This guy wants to compete. This guy loves being a part of that locker room with his brothers in there. He's so talented, but what makes him so special is the competitive drive to be great. Thinking back to how he worked through training camp and how his early part of the season was going. My expectations is that Justin's going to be a major part of everything we do around here for a long time, and he knows that. He knows the feelings that we have for him and that I personally have for him. I don't think there's any doubt in his mind about that.
And let's hear from Justin Jefferson as he talks about the disappointing season.
No, it's really hard to explain the words, the feelings. It's just not the type of season that we would like. Just all of the things that happened, all of the injuries, all of the different things that really put us a step back a little bit. It's a tough season. It's a tough game that we play. But I'm always going to be out there and try to give it my all. I'm always going to go out there and try to make as many plays, as many catches, as many touchdowns as I can to make my team win and to put us in the best situation as possible. But it's just tough, with all of the stuff that we deal with throughout the season.
Yeah, Justin's an amazing player, truly. One of the best players in the NFL, certainly the best wide receiver, and a priority to get that extension done this offseason. It's going to be costly, in excess of $30 million a year, but he is a guy that you build around, and you got to have him done. And I'm sure he'll be looking forward to having Kirk Cousins come back, if that is indeed the case. Because if you looked at so many of Jefferson's catches with Mullins, they were behind him. He was contorting his body. He's taking big hits. Mm-hmm. And yeah, but he also was feasting on that Lions secondary in both of the games this year. As I said, 192 yards in this game. And I think that's going to be the Lions' downfall in the postseason. I think it's going to start this weekend with Matthew Stafford coming in there with Cooper Kupp and Puka Nakua, I think those guys are going to tear up that secondary.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, and so that's, to me, it's going to be, as I said, the downfall for the Lions. But you look at the entire NFC North, and it's getting better. The Packers made the playoffs with a win over the Bears. The Bears won 4 of their last 6, are playing better. They got a big decision ahead on Justin Fields versus drafting Caleb Williams or Drake May or whoever the case at quarterback. That's going to be certainly a fascinating storyline to watch. The entire division, I think, is going to be one of the best in the NFL next year. Mm-hmm. And I think the Vikings, as I said, are right there to make the turnaround real quick if they make the right moves, add some pieces in the draft, add some quality corners, maybe in free agency. They got some money to spend. Get Cousins, Hunter, Jefferson under contract, and I think they can be right there. Let's hear from Harrison Smith. We mentioned him before. He was kind of hinting at retirement, which we'll see if that's the case. But if that is the case, he's had a phenomenal career, Hall of Fame worthy, I would say, with his 6 Pro Bowls.
Winning is the thing. That's all people care about. And that's the only thing people should care about. They're competing, play to win. When you don't, it's not enough. Like however it unfolds, whatever cards you're dealt, it doesn't matter. Having said that, I'm proud to be a part of this group and part of this organization, staff, ownership, players, everybody that helps us prepare for game day. There's so many people. Very much appreciative of everyone in the contract.
Harrison, what's the hardest part when the season ends? Leaving the locker room for the last time. What's the hardest part?
Definitely the camaraderie that you get. You can't really replace it anywhere. You try. It's not quite the same. That's missed. Feeling you get on game day, highest level of competition in this sport to define. You can't buy a spot out there. That's what makes it so special.
Yeah, you could see the emotion in Harrison Smith as he kind of ponders what he's going to make as far as his next move. And we talk about if indeed he does retire, then the Vikings are going to have to replace him at safety. Lewis Cine, the 2022 first-round pick, will get an opportunity, and if he can't come through, then you can definitely label him a first-round bust at that point. I think that's a painful draft pick when you look at Kyle Hamilton being picked by the Ravens in the first round at a spot the Vikings held or could have picked him earlier before they traded down to get Cine and Andrew Booth. And Hamilton is a Pro Bowl player, may end up being an All-Pro this year. That one's painful, but as we said, they've had a good pick with Addison this year. They've had some other good picks, but you got to hit on these first-rounders for sure, and the Cine pick so far has not panned out. But talking about Kirk Cousins, and we want to hear from Kirk, but first we're going to hear from our great sponsor, the Select Minnesota Buick GMC dealers.
There are trucks, then there's the truck, GMC Sierra, with available features like the V8 engine, the ultimate luxury interior, and of course, the available world's first 6-function multi-pro tailgate. GMC Sierra, not just any truck, the truck. GMC's continued commitment to professional-grade engineering is on full display at your local GMC dealer. Come take a test drive today and see for yourself. We are professional-grade. GMC. Well-qualified buyers get 0.9% APR on 2023 GMC Sierra light-duty models, plus no monthly payments for 90 days. See your local GMC dealer today. Length of contract limited. Deferred monthly payments for 90 days. Excludes residents of Pennsylvania. Must finance with GM Financial. Down payment required at signing if applicable. Finance charges accrue from data financing. Some customers will not qualify. Not available with lease and some other offers. Take new retail delivery by 1/31/24.
Kirk Cousins, 4-time Pro Bowl quarterback for the Vikings, is a free agent in March, cannot be franchised. Vikings have to make a big decision on the quarterback. is kind of the first domino of the offseason. And as I've said, I certainly endorse signing him and then a month later drafting the future franchise quarterback in the first round. Cousins did say in his media session that he'd consider a more affordable contract, team-friendly, but that's still going to be $40 to $45 million a year, which is definitely pricey. But when you've got a guy that is playing at a high level, as Cousins was this year, you got to pay the freight on those quarterbacks. There's no doubt about it. That's what the top teams do. And I think it's a situation where if they can re-sign Cousins, keep him for a year or two, and draft that quarterback in the first round, it would kind of follow the Patrick Mahomes plan that Kansas City did. They had Alex Smith in Mahomes' rookie season. Mahomes sat. By year two, Mahomes is the MVP in the league when they traded Alex Smith to Washington, and by his third season, he's a Super Bowl champion. That sounds like a good plan. If you can pull it off, and if you can find a Patrick Mahomes in the draft, we'll see how it works out. But here is Kirk Cousins talking about kind of on the last day in the locker room as players were packing up, and teammates such as Brian O'Neill were talking about how much they wanted him back.
I'm not surprised in the sense that I know the kind of love that our teammates have for one another, so that's a feeling that is mutual back towards Brian as well from me and to many other people in this locker room. And we've been in it together a lot, through a lot of ups and downs, and so we'd all love to be able to do it again and get back together again and try to make another.
And Kirk also talked about the possibility of the Vikings drafting a quarterback high in the draft and what that could mean to him.
Yeah, I think every year, in a sense, in my career, there's always that potential of a new quarterback being brought in, and there's always a succession plan. I mean, I don't think you can do your job as a leader of an organization without saying, what's our succession plan? What do we have down the pipeline? That's just being responsible and due diligence. So, whether it was Nate Sudfeld being drafted in Washington, Kellen Mond, Jaron Hall, I mean, there's always going to be that dynamic of what's our plan moving forward. And, the contract timing tends to be done in March, and the draft is in late April. So you kind of do one before the other, and it won't really matter what happens in April, because once I sign my contract, that's done in March, and what's done is done.
As we said, Cousins' contract, the first domino. Daniil Hunter, I think, is a priority re-signing. 16.5 sacks. Was less impactful in the last few games. Again, not enough help up front for him. But he also had 23 tackles for loss, 2 more in this game against Detroit, and a sack. Mm-hmm. The 23 tackles for loss tied for the league lead with T.J. Watt. Daniil had a great season, stayed healthy the last 2 years. He's worth re-signing in that 25 to 20, whatever, $27 million a year range that's going to take to get him done, unless someone else is going to blow him out of the water, which can happen in free agency. So be important to try to get him re-signed before he hits the open market. The Vikings also have to keep an eye on what's happening with Brian Flores, their defensive coordinator, who overall did an excellent job this season with his aggressive scheme, his blitz-heavy scheme that worked pretty well the first half of the season. But then when DJ Wanham got hurt, and he's a guy they should think about re-signing, he's a free agent, and then the secondary was exposed, then things didn't go as well for Brian Flores and his blitzing defense, and Jared Goff threw for over 300 last week. But certainly Flores will be in the mix for free agent or for head coaching jobs. We'll see if he can get one of those. If not, be great to have him back, I think, for the Vikings. Wild card weekend coming up. After teams such as the Steelers made the playoffs, Houston won the AFC South. The Buccaneers won the NFC South. The Bills beat the Dolphins to win the NFC East. And looking ahead, I think the game of the week, as I mentioned, the Rams at the Lions on Sunday night. Stafford against Goff. What a great storyline after they were traded for each other. I think the Green Bay at Dallas game is interesting to see if the Packers can give a a tough game to the Cowboys, which I think they can, but I like Dallas in that game. Miami and Kansas City Saturday night, another good game. The Eagles struggling. Can they get back on track against Tampa Bay? Wild card weekend will be fun. Unfortunately, the Vikings will not be in it, but with the right moves, as we said, as we've talked about, they can get back to the playoffs quickly in 2024, and we'll look forward to talking about it next season. And this has been Jeff Diamond's Purple Report, brought to you every Monday and Thursday, sometimes Tuesdays during the Vikings season, by your select Minnesota Buick GMC dealers on 1500 ESPN, available 24/7 on YouTube via links from the 1500 ESPN and Score North websites. This is Jeff Diamond with AJ Fredrickson, and everybody stay safe, stay healthy, and we will talk to you in the 2024 season. Thanks for joining us.